Marines. Their goal is to use a portion of the profits to directly help and improve the lives of veterans and their families. Vets Leaf is the name of his cannabis facility. Vets Leaf has already donated money to our local VFW. Tony gathered donations for victims of Hurricane Harvey and was able to get a large truck to drive the supplies to the VFW near Houston. He is currently gathering donations for victims of Hurricane Irma to deliver to Florida. He is always helping others. Thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Edward Malloy. Edward Malloy was in the United States Marines during the Vietnam era. He has been in Desert Hot Springs for the past 4 years and continues to serve. He is a membership chair for the Desert Hot Springs Rotary. He volunteers for everything and everything. He serves at the Desert Hot Springs High School with the Rotary Interact program, works with the Scouts in Desert Hot Springs, the community garden, and much more. He is always around town and there to lend a helping hand. We are lucky to have him decide to choose Desert Hot Springs as our community to make his home. Thank you, Ed, for all your service. And Ed, these certificates also are from the different offices of the state, so we want to give you one of those too. Okay. Come on up and accept your awards. Next we have Eddie Johnson. Eddie P.T. Johnson. He cares for and helps maintain this Veterans Park. He also, anything to do with veterans, he is there advising and helping as a volunteer. He goes out to the schools and shares his memories of the Vietnam War as a way of teaching children about that war. He also we are so honored to have him reside in DHS. He also brought the Vietnam Wall to Desert Hot Springs. Eddie, thank you for your service. Connie Hargraves. Connie for years worked with the nonprofits of this community, been in the veterans community at Elks Lodge, inspired support of the Desert Hot Springs Junior ROTC, held a military stand for veterans insured well in the desert, women's veterans in Riverside and Barstow, VA, and have supplies for the veterans. She has also worked the last 3 years bringing vets to the Elks golf game and various dinners, as well as collecting donations for the 29 Palms YMCA thrift store. Connie served for 4 years in the Marine Corps and 2 years in the Marine Reserve. Connie, thank you for your service. Larry Buchanan. Where's Larry?
He's coming.
He's coming? Oh, he's coming? Okay, there he is. Larry is a dedicated veteran and continues serving his community every day. He is not only an active Rotarian by serving on the Desert Hot Springs Rotary Community Garden Committee, serving as a secretary until recently and always volunteering time and money towards Rotary youth projects. He also is a member of the Friends of the Library and volunteers on Saturday at the DHS bookstore, which raises money for our youth programs at the Desert Hot Springs Library. Larry is also an active member in the Historical Society and is determined to preserve the history of Desert Hot Springs. Larry is a wonderful husband, father, friend, and community member. In addition, he serves on the city's Planning Commission. Thank you for your service, Larry. And don't leave because we have one more award. Philip Lorino. Okay. One more, Larry. Larry.
Larry, thank you for being such an awesome veteran in our community. Thank you for everything you do. This Bronze Award is presented to you by the Community and Cultural Affairs Commission on behalf of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Club 1534. The Bronze Award is awarded to Larry Buchanan in recognition of his local patriotic activities, constant community support, and outstanding qualities of citizenship. Thank you, Mr. Buchanan.
Appreciate it. Okay. I would just like to add one more thing after seeing these honorees receive this award, and that is, I have always felt it was an honor to serve my country, and I continue to serve today, not in the military, but in my community. And I hope most of you here today are doing the same. We can all make a difference in our community, and what better way can we as parents and adults show our children and the next generation how to be better in their lives than by serving others. Thank you. Yes, right. We have one more award we'd like to present to the City of Desert Hot Springs.
Hi, Steve Brown with Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia's office, and we just want to honor the City of Desert Hot Springs and all your partners that work to make this great event here and acknowledging our veterans within our city. So, matter of time, I'll present it to Anayeli to take back to the City Council meeting, and I'll try and get to the next meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I now have the pleasure to introduce your keynote speaker today, a special lady and resident of Desert Hot Springs. She not only is an author, retired nurse, but the wife of a World War II 101st Airborne Paratrooper, Francis Russell Snell. We call him Russ, who could not be here today due to health issues, but he's here in spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, Marge Snell.
You're a beautiful audience, just watching all of you, including city leaders, to our own talented student leaders of tomorrow and accomplished ROTC. Amidst a field of American and service flags, Desert Hot Springs Park feels like sacred ground. Today we honor and celebrate their virtues, remember the fallen, and acknowledge our veterans suffering from physical and emotional injuries. Through the lives of the living and present at our Hometown America event, we extend our love and appreciation for your service and sacrifice for our country. Thank you for the pleasure and privilege to express my pride and respect for our veterans, especially by having this opportunity to talk about my hero, my husband, Russ Snell. And to the veterans' families as well, because some have said the most difficult job in the service is being the spouse. When a friend asked me recently how I was doing during my husband's critical illness, perhaps I had an advantage because I'm a nurse, but I said it has been very difficult, but not hard to do for someone I love. As the wife of a veteran, like many of you present today, we are the caregivers. As I tell my husband's story, I empathize with you, will attempt to encourage and support the veteran, spouse, and family to work together. Just before I married Russ 28 years ago, he realized my patriotism and pride in my 4 World War II uncles, and told me, casually, he was a 101st World War II paratrooper. Wow, I thought. But he warned me, sometimes I will scream at night, just hit my arm, shake me. I'll be okay. There's something else he told me right after we were married, the combination for a little metal box to open and include anything of mine. He added quietly, you might like to see what's inside. It was his World War II Purple Heart, oak leaf clusters, and other medals, locked up ever since the war and never talked about. For our first Christmas, I opened the box, took out his medals, and put them in a walnut shadow box to hang where everyone would see them. He cried with appreciation for the recognition. Opening that combination for me and opening my gift to him started to open memories that Russ had tried so hard to keep out of his mind. He thought, out of sight, out of mind. He could not lock out the image from his subconscious mind to come out as screams in the middle of the night. Russ once told me I didn't talk about something that I was trying so hard to forget. And, he added, the war was so terrible that no one would believe it if I told them. As his caregiver, I figured the nightmares were about the war. Following the tragedy of his mother and sister's deaths, his father and brother's marriages, Russ believed his country needed him more than he was needed at home, and for that reason he volunteered to be in the original 101st Airborne. As an 18-year-old senior high school student, Russ had the unselfish strength of character and courage to break up with his sweetheart, Rosemary, because he knew that becoming a paratrooper meant it was unlikely he would come home alive. He wanted her to go on with her life without him because he did not want her to grieve and mourn his death, or if he married her, like many did, going off to war, to be the one to receive his dog tags. Russ was prepared to die, but chose to live. After the most strenuous, vigorous training ever endured, where only 2/3 successfully completed the requirements, Russ was inspired to live by being in the presence of Eisenhower, Churchill, Bradley, and Montgomery. On the eve of D-Day, June 5th, just a moment, I have other people's notes up here too. On the eve of D-Day, June 5th, 1944, he was enjoying his favorite dessert and described to me his thoughts. Ice cream is not to die for, it's to live for. Russ jumped behind the lines in Normandy with his Charlie Company band of brothers. He chose another symbol of life. With his feet firmly on the ground, he pulled out his paratrooper knife, tore out a huge circle from his silk parachute, and stuck it in his pocket. After 7 straight days of battle without relief, on Purple Heart Lane, Russ was shot in the arm and taken to a hospital. Yankee Doodle Dandy had become a patriotic favorite song, and Russ wrote on the back of the military postcard notification to his dad of his injury, "I'm fine and dandy. Don't worry about me." He was not going to town on a pony, but went next to the town of Zaan in another C-47. As he prepared to jump again into the Market Garden Battle of Holland, he had a job to do or die. During the fiercest, heaviest artillery yet received, while taking messages between units, Russ was blown off of the Army Harley motorcycle by an .88 explosion. On Hell's Highway, where many had to be left dead and dying, he felt fortunate to be alive and end up back in the hospital. Following another recovery and other miraculous escapes from death, Russ went by truck to Bastogne, Battle of the Bulge. His 3rd injury was being blown out of a foxhole, receiving a severe concussion and shell shock, so Russ cannot recall Patton coming in with reinforcements. Today we still have that symbol of life, his piece of parachute from Normandy that made it through each battle, and the 5 military hospitalizations. After Russ's 3rd injury, he was flown home in a medical transport plane. The 506 Company C went on to be liberators of Landsberg concentration camp and to secure the Berghof and Hitler's Eagle's Nest. That made me realize that what I was beginning to write for our family history was important enough to make available in the book published last year, Lest We Forget, a World War II 101st Airborne Paratrooper. Saving Private Ryan was inspired by the 101st 506 Company C. Steven Spielberg sent an autographed thank you to our reunion, but Russ could not go to see the movie for many months. Finally, he asked me if we could rent it and watch it together alone, because he knew it would be difficult to watch. A book chapter describes the painful experience and how, for the first time in his life, he described that nightmare experience that still haunts him for 73 years. Photographs of Russ before the war show him with a sparkle in his eyes and pride in his expression as he begins service for his country. But with weight loss and the strain of war being over, his eyes were speaking for him, saying, "I wasn't dead, but I wasn't fully alive either." During the days of seeing more dead bodies than living people, there's a part of you that dies with them. I tell you this with awe and respect for what our servicemen suffer and endure, what it takes to be diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. Also with understanding for the spouse. Sometimes it's just too much to take. Families wanted life after the war to go back to the way it was, and so Russ and Rosemary were married just 8 days after he returned home to America, home alive in 45. They did not talk about the war, but life would never be the same. After a few years of marriage, Russ's wife Rosemary left him to marry the one she dated during the war. Dealing with Russ's screams, waking her up, made her think, like he said, maybe she should have gone on with her life without him. Russ had fought a war, but did not know how to fight from a broken heart. Finally realizing their love for each other, for the sake of their family and young daughter, they did remarry, raised a beautiful family until her death following a heart attack and quadruple bypass. I might add, Jan Pye asked me to mention, actually, Russ's health is pretty good, and he would have been here, but this is a subject, PTSD, and what he went through that's so personal that is the main reason I just thought that it would be difficult for him to be here and go through that again. Severe illness and tragedy can increase the seriousness of PTSD. I experienced this during Russ's recent illness and hospitalizations. Dehydrations and complications from surgery caused Russ to relive the entire war. Startled by a noise he thought was flak hitting his C-47. Loss of balance felt like his troop ship was capsizing. Grabbing me to protect me from a hospital cart parked nearby, he thought was a tank coming toward us. During the battle, the troops can fight in their sleep. During illness, Russ could stay awake for 3 days and nights at a time, fighting the war of 73 years ago. I tried to stay strong for Russ, but for the first time I broke down and cried when he pointed his finger at his forehead and said, "It's all right. I've had this done to me before. They found me and are going to kill me, but I will gladly die for you and our family." That's what it can be like to have PTSD. The good news is, Russ is an optimist, and at the age of 94, still refuses to be a victim. For his birthday in September, his gift of choice was to spend time with friends and family. Right after the war, because the doctor told him to go on with his life, and forget about the war, Russ joined the Optimist Club and still lives by their creed, quoting favorite parts today: to be too strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. To all caregivers or the spouse of a military service member, to do a tough job requires being tough. Be informed with the help that is available at our veterans clinics, support groups, and our own local VFW Post 1534. Be willing to work together to keep your family together, to love, support, be strong, and fight for the one you love, because that is what they did for all of us. Veterans, be optimistic and get the care you deserve. You sure earned it. On Memorial Day, the poppy stands for remembrance of lives lost in Flanders fields. The poppies blow between the crosses row on row. They loved, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now they lie in Flanders fields. Today, Veterans Day, you are facing Desert Hot Springs remembrance with a hillside of 100 flags. In healing fields, our tears flow between the flags row on row. They fought, felt pain, and suffered so. Our heroes are loved and honored now in healing fields.